our third part of Meet Me in the Middle, and we've been having some major, we went deep diving. We went deep diving on the first two, and so you got to make sure that you watch session 1 and session 2, because, man, these ladies are waxing eloquent, okay? So this time we're going to talk about what's going on with this pandemic that our world is dealing with right now that's really serious. And we've heard so many different mixed messages coming from our administration. How are you guys doing? Like, how are you feeling with COVID-19? Cidny, how are you feeling? How are you feeling emotionally with everything that's going on with COVID?
I don't know if it's fair to ask me because I'm in healthcare.
I think it's fair to ask because you're in healthcare.
So it may not, because I have to stay on top of it all. And then I'm in nursing home. I'm in the geriatric space.
Okay. Gotcha.
So I'm a lot more sensitive to it because I'm on ground zero.
Yes.
As far as the demographic that's most susceptible to getting COVID. Emotionally, I think when it first happened, I was freaking out. I'm still very much concerned, but because I look at those numbers every single day, and I look at the demographics it's hitting and the survival rate and whatnot, I'm still very concerned. But I think my outrage more so comes from how people are responding to it. So I think at this point, I'm a little bit more upset than I am scared, because at this point, you know how to make those numbers go down with simple practices.
Yeah, and those are?
So simple practices, hand washing hygiene. So washing your hands for 20 seconds underneath some warm, tolerable water, lather up, wash.
Happy birthday. Get through that song. That should be 20 seconds.
20 seconds. That. Wearing a face mask. It's hot. I completely understand that it's hot. But here's the issue. Me being 29, 30 years old, have a higher survival rate of you being in your ages, 25 years old, you two. I have a better chance of surviving than you do. I know I don't have underlying health conditions. I know that if I get hit by it, then you know what? I'll be okay. Or the likelihood is I'm going to be asymptomatic. So I can have it without knowing that I have it. Best practice is let me be courteous and polite and cover my face so I can protect you, because I don't know if I have it. People are upset and ringing bells and singing songs and all that kind of stuff inside of town hall because they feel like their rights are being taken away because they have to wear a mask. No, you're wearing a mask because it's just courteous to wear a mask.
Okay.
That is where it's at this point. So emotionally, I think I'm more so drained because, the narrative, you have your administration saying one thing and not listening to their health experts and just flying off the handle and saying something. And then you have those people that are listening to that who are not health professionals. And so then you see spikes happening. But they still think that that's not, and this is across the board. This is not black, white, nothing. This is just across the board. And then people that just don't care. And you have babies in the situation. Alabama just saw its first 2 children pass away underneath 5. And I don't know if it was COVID related or if they had COVID in their system, but it's just, how is it that, so emotionally, I'm drained. Right. And it's not because I'm necessarily scared of what's happening right now. I mean, because I'm very concerned. I don't want to catch it. I don't want my child to catch it. I want my family to catch it. But it's just, we know what we can do to bring it down. But nobody wants to.
Yeah. Carrie, tell them your story, because Carrie's got another factor that factors in with that. So Carrie, tell them how you feel, what's going on with you.
Yeah, well, so I do have an underlying health condition. So I'm type 1 diabetic. So that has definitely been an additional trigger for me. But I would say I've kind of been like, I almost feel like, you know, those charts where it's like you spike up and you go back down and then you spike up and I feel like that's my mental health. Like there was like anxiety, and then I'm such an extrovert. So for me to not be around people at first was like this weird isolation panic. But then it's almost like God showed me at some point, like, that there is this freedom in limitations. And so starting to see how I could be creative within that limitation. And then even going back to our previous conversation about, you know, I know Cidny said in one of the episodes that, you know, when you went to college, you stopped going to church for a while because you had, oh my goodness, every single week of your life you had been. And for me, this has also been a weird, like, I'm like, oh, I don't have to go to church, like into the church building. And it has given me so much freedom and perspective from that bubble. And I think I needed that so almost like for me now, it sounds horrible to say, but there's part of me that like is actually afraid to go back to normal because I am like, there's a lot of things that I don't think were healthy in my life that were just sort of routine, that were just sort of, we do this because we do it. So that's been interesting. But that said, I think I still have like a baseline anxiety about it. And I agree, as people start reopening, I can tell I'm getting a little triggered again, like little anxiety coming back up again. So
do you find that people are like, when you do go out and you have to go out to get necessities and whatnot, do you find that when you wear your mask that people are staring at you or looking at you funny?
Yes. But see, I'm wearing scrubs too.
Okay.
So they're looking at me like, have you been in it?
Yeah.
You know, and whatnot. So
Connecticut was very strict when we first started quarantine. So it is mandatory to wear a mask, like in a store. You have to. So I would say I see more people with masks than without masks where I am.
Not out here.
And let's talk about that's different in cultures. Okay, so again, Cidny's in the deep south, Carrie's in the northeast. So there's a cultural difference too, right? That whole thing that we talked about earlier, and it makes a difference. But yeah, how about parenting your kids right now? I mean, Eli, is it Eli? That's your son, right, Sid? So in preschool, correct? Or is he in preschool? Oh, no. So he's just 3 maybe, right?
Yeah, he'll be 4 next month. Yeah. So he's about to be preschool age. Yes.
So tell us how parenting has changed and the frustrations with it, as well as
I love his face.
blessings. What?
Don't talk
the
about
frustrations. He needs kids because we took him out. You know, he was around children all the time. And so he needs that interaction. My son loves people. He loves, and he needs people. He needs kids. I don't have the energy of a 3-year-old. And he wants me to go run and play and all that. And it's like, I'm coming off of an 8, 9, 10-hour day, getting pulled at every single day. My husband too, because we're both in healthcare. And it's, then we come home and then we have a 3-year-old. So I think I've done a horrendous job, to be quite honest. I need ABC Mouse. I need something.
Oh goodness.
It's hard.
Oh, the phone is his best friend at this point, just because I'm tired.
So Carrie had 3 kids in school.
Oh.
So then when did they pull them out, Carrie? Mid-March?
So it was my first year to have all 3 kids in full-time school, and I was such a happy mom. But I don't know how you do it. with working, because I'm a stay-at-home mom. I do, you know, like writing and like some
More
speaking on the
power
side,
to you. More power to you. Stay at home mom. Respect.
It's but yeah, so then they all had to come home and do distance learning, which is what it is. But I feel like it's the first 2 weeks when we were like, oh, maybe, because it was early March for us when they started distance learning. And so they were like, we're going to try this for 2 weeks and maybe we'll see if we can go back. And so I was definitely in kind of that like survival mode for 2 weeks, like, all right, we can do this, we're going to power through, and we're just going to, you know, drop little packets, and I'm working through everything. And I'll be honest, after that 2 week period when I knew it was going to be this indefinite ride, I just kind of stepped back and I'm like, you can only do what you can do, right? And I basically chose one of my children to care about. And no, like my kindergartner, I'm like, I have to do school with him, right? Because he can't, like, he's got to learn to read. He can't sit on the computer and figure out what he's supposed to do. Right. So I let my big kids go on their Chromebooks, and their teachers would kind of guide them. But there is so much guilt, Cidny. I don't know if you feel that, but there's like at the end of every day, I would just be like, I don't think I did half of what I was supposed to. And
yeah, I completely understand, because I look back and I'm like, man, he should know, you know, he should be able to count to 30, 40. He should know times tables at this point. You know, I'm home. You know, he should be ready for college. Yes. SATs. He should be prepped for SATs at this moment, you know.
Yes.
But at the same time, I mean, I don't know. There's no excuse. I mean, I can't give a legitimate excuse other than I'm tired. Yeah. And by the time I'm home, it's like my mind is shut down, and then it's like an extra to try and have to deal with the, you know, because he wants to be entertained.
Are there special precautions that you guys are taking as far as like cleanliness and all that kind of stuff?
Yes. So my son stays with a babysitter. I made sure that he stayed with somebody that I know can't afford to get sick.
Oh, that was good.
No, that's smart.
So yeah, I put him, so it was either I bring someone inside of my home that younger, I guess, or whatever, on babycare.com, plug care, you know, and and, you know, not know your whereabouts versus you're going with somebody that I know that you've been with. I know it's clean as a whistle and can't afford to bring it inside their home.
Right.
He's going to have to be a little bit bored, I guess, or not have as much run time, but my son will be safe. You know.
What do you do with your kids? I know your kids, so I'm laughing at this.
Oh my gosh, I know. You're gonna say hashtag boy mom, right, Cidny? It's hygiene's all relative, but we do like, I mean, we're trying to get him to do the hand washing, and
mine's failed.
We stayed home so much. My husband was actually working from home for the longest, and that kind of helped, because if one of us had to run out, we could just leave the kids home and no one had to like, they really weren't even seeing friends. They've actually, I feel like they've understood what's happening more than I would have thought. Like my youngest is probably like yours, Cidny, where he is like Mr. Social. He is like tackle hugs everyone. And I thought he was going to have a hard time when we finally started like seeing people from a distance, but he was like cautious. He's like, the sickness, I don't want to get the sickness. So they have definitely, it's almost sad at some level, because I'm like, this is going to mark them.
I haven't even told mine about it. I haven't told him about it. I just,
no,
he doesn't know.
He's oblivious.
Yeah.
He's oblivious to it. And, you know, like the people that are, you know, when he does interact with other children, it's, again, people that I know that can't afford to get sick. Like your pregnant mom over there, you know, and your kids, you can't afford to get sick. So he can play with your kids. Cool, you know.
Yeah.
Good question. I mean, so like Cidny has a 3-year-old. Carrie's got an 11, a 9.5, and a 6. Right?
Yep.
Woo, Nana had to get it.
Got it. Good job.
Grandkids, y'all. So I mean, I gotta keep it. But I mean, you had, because they were in school full time, you had to tell them something. So how are they doing emotionally with all this? You know, like you said, the sickness, but how are they doing emotionally?
That's been hard to navigate. And when it is hard when you're dealing with like my own stress and ups and downs, and then almost seeing some of that mirrored in them, but in a child version. And so just as I'm trying to give grace to myself for my own reaction to COVID, it's hard trying to give grace to the kids and their ups and downs. My two social ones, my oldest and youngest, are super social. So that's been really hard. You know, there was a lot of just that sense of it's not fair. And, you know, we all worry about entitlement in our kids anyway, but there's a point where I had to sit and say, you know what, she just needs to let out all this sadness, and I need to let her grieve and not try to, you know, nip all the what sounds like a bad habit to me or a bad behavior pattern. So that's been difficult. I also see my middle son, he's got a hard time with transitions. So in some ways, school was like the one thing that he was forced to do, that forced him to be in social situations, that forced him outside his comfort zone. And I'm finding now that he almost has to relearn. Like, I kid you not, I tried to just drive the kids somewhere the other day, and he threw this massive meltdown just to get in the car and go somewhere. And I'm like, he's gonna have to relearn. Yes, life goes on. You're gonna have to get your butt in the car and go sometimes when you don't want to. And he, I almost have seen him isolate more and retreat into just his independence. And so that's like a whole nother thing. I think it's going to be interesting to see as we move. I know it's going to be like it's going to be a new normal, as everyone says, but trying to transition into something outside of what we're doing right now is going to be a whole nother. I mean, man, I feel like just as a parent, just when you figure out something, everything changes, you know? So we don't ever get to be experts, right?
Yeah. Ooh, sisters, I know that it is hard, and I my hat's off to you guys with little kids at home and trying to just navigate all that, or like you, Cidny, going to work and trying to just navigate all the things going on in society right now. So that just reminds me to know how to pray for you guys more, with the patience and the wisdom. And Cidny, you said earlier, discernment, you know, and just navigating like the different, you know, personality types, like you were talking about, Carrye, you know, just the one that can just pull in and be okay with that and then needs to come back out. So there's just going to be a lot. We're just going to have a full-time job praying over these babies is what I think. But hey, we're going to take a break. I'm hoping we have one more episode in us. We want to talk about women and some issues, women in society, and some of the inequality maybe there in some places, and some ways forward. We always, in Meet Me in the Middle, we talk about being in the middle of our mess and giving hope, but we always want to say, how can we move forward? What are some things we can do? We don't want to just stay in the middle of our mess. What's some hope? So come back. We have a lot more. These two I'm just loving it. So come back and see us next time.